Welcome to Breaking the Silence with Dr. Gregory Williams. Dr. Williams is the author of the acclaimed book, Shattered by the Darkness, Putting the Pieces Back Together After Child Abuse. Dr. Williams is on the senior leadership team at Baylor College of Medicine in Houston, Texas. And Dr. Williams travels the United States speaking and training professionals, parents, and victims about the importance of dealing with abuse and personal trauma head on and not being afraid to break the silence of your own personal pain. Feel free to call in to tonight's show at 888-627-6008 and speak with Dr. Williams and his guests live on air. And now, your host, Dr. Williams.
Well, good evening and welcome live from Houston, Texas, the most beautiful city in the world. And I'll tell you what, the sun just went down back behind the Texas Children's Hospital and MD Anderson and Baylor College of Medicine. The work just right over there, and it's dark already, so we can tell it's getting into the fall. But I just want to welcome you into my home and welcome you to the program tonight. And I want to let you know, you might as well get some duct tape and wrap them around the top of your socks, because we're going to blow your socks off tonight with the guest that we have with us this evening. It's just going to be awesome. It's going to be inspirational. You're going to find some things that you'll be able to use in your own life, to be able to help other people with, to be able to find hope. And that's one thing that I always like to share every week on this program, that if you will invest with us just a few minutes every Sunday night, I want to promise you almost a money back guarantee if we charge for this, but I almost promise you that you're going to be able to grab one or two nuggets of truth, of wisdom, of professionalism, of advice that you're going to be able to apply to your life. We're not just watching Supermarket Sweep on the Game Show Network here and hope they get the $5,000 at the end of the game. We're talking about life situations with people. And I just want to welcome you all here tonight and to jump on our Facebook page, like that, and feel free to comment on that. My son Curtis is watching that tonight. And if you have any comments or questions, we would love to have you call in live tonight, 888-627-6008. And Thomas or Don at the BBS radio station in California will be answering those phones, and they'll patch you right on through live to us and our guest. I am so happy about the guest that we have tonight, but before we tell you who it is, I want you to really just strap on your seatbelts and hang on. Next week, and Don at the radio station, I haven't even told you this is all news, and you may have heard it this morning on the broadcast. But next week, we're going to have on our program as our guest for the entire hour, the only living cast member left of the infamous and most historic I Love Lucy show. Little Ricky will be right here next week, and he's going to tell you about what he went through as a child star, starring in the Andy Griffith show and the I Love Lucy show, and listening to Jack Benny play his violin next door to the house, and all the different people that he talked to and visited as a child. But then we're also going to take him through his younger days as a teenager, in college, getting involved in drugs and alcohol, and how the Lord just transformed his life and changed him. And he has a wonderful testimony, and it was amazing. I got to watch last night a 2-hour documentary on TV that he had done, and he was on Fox News this week. We interviewed about Lucy and his life with Lucy, and he wrote this awesome book that I'm about 3/4 of the way through with, called Life After Lucy. And there little Ricky is right there. Keith Thibodeau will be here next week as our guest for the entire hour. I'm excited about that. That's going to be really, really awesome. Now, take a drink of coffee or your favorite soda or your cold beverage, whatever. And I want to let you know, first of all, that I want to welcome every one of the people from that wonderful town that changed my life and has been such an impact in my heart, Carterville, Illinois, and just tell you all howdy. and that I love you guys. And my time there was probably the most precious time that I ever had in my life, meeting so many people that have impacted my world. And it's amazing how people can touch your heart, change your heart, and then they remain in your heart. And at a later time, you catch up with them, like in the last few weeks that I have with so many, and it's like we never lost a minute. And in that, I had the awesome reconnection with our guest tonight. My firstborn son, James Matthew Williams, when he was born, my wife and I wanted to pick out a name that was going to mean something very special to us and to him one day too, kind of a legacy. And we looked around and we found two people that impacted our life and we loved dearly and still love, James and Matt Brown. And we named our son James Matthew Williams after these two boys and these inspirational young men now. And tonight, live from Carterville, Illinois, I want to welcome to you James Brown. James, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I am.
Hey,
Good to be here, Greg.
You're looking good, my friend.
Well, thanks. Well, you are too. You look amazing.
Well, your hair, my hair is starting to get thin and starting to gray, but you're looking pretty darn good. You don't age like I did.
Well, I do have to give a credit to my sister-in-law, Lori. About 2 hours ago, she cut it.
Oh.
So got a nice little haircut for the show. So.
Well, you look darn good.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, James, I was, first of all, I can't tell you how much and that I have a bromance with you, a man love with you that is, you and Matt have changed my life. And you stood up with me in my wedding. And we have so many memories. And I wish I had a popsicle right now that I could hand you through the screen and you could grab yours from your side and we'd sit here and eat popsicles like we used to do in the olden days. How many years ago has it been since we was in the youth group together and I was youth group leader and you was in our youth group at Grand Avenue Baptist? How many years are we talking about?
Well, it was the mid to late 80s. So
where's time go?
30 plus years.
30
something years. Yeah.
So how you been?
I've been good. I'm doing better now than I ever have, Greg. So.
Well, good. I want to tell you what. There's times I think in life, and I know this may, just people can just listen into this right now, but I just want to have a conversation with you. There's times in our life that we have divine connections with people and cross paths for a reason. And there's no doubt in my mind with the friendships that I have with the people in that youth group, that at those days we didn't even know, all we knew is we was having a good time and we were kind of helping each other get through life. Mm-hmm. And isn't it amazing how many true and real friends we have from that time?
Oh, it's incredible. Absolutely.
The people there are very, very special, and I will never, that's always impacted me. And if I could go back and relive probably one chapter of my life again, there's not many good chapters back in those days, but that chapter at Grand Avenue Baptist was the highlight probably of my entire ministry and life. I just love it dearly.
Most definitely.
Yeah, it was great. So tell me, since we had this relationship, we had this friendship, you would come over to our house and you guys would spend the night and we'd have Nerf ball tournaments, we'd have Bible studies, we'd go on trips together and we do stuff at the funeral home together and so many different things in those days. Tell me what it did to you when you heard what had happened to me and I finally became real with the book and you read the book, because I did not, I did apologize to you for not telling you that in the past. But tell me what kind of impact the book had on you, and then I want you to start talking about what I think a bestseller book you have inside of you and what's going to be your story for the rest of the show, but how did that resonate with you? Story.
To kind of get a good understanding of where I was at when I read your book, I just came out of recovery. It was the first book that I read out of recovery. It just fell into my lap just by happenstance through Jeannie Mitchell. You remember Jeannie Mitchell?
Oh yeah.
And I started going back to the gym, and she was working there, just giving her something to do. And she told me about your book. And of course, I wasn't quite sure what the book was going to be about. Said, you got to read it. You got to read it. And she gave me a copy of your book. I had no idea what it was going to be about. I thought I knew you and pretty much everything to know. And from the moment I started reading that book, I read it within about 4 days, maybe 5. Don't want to exaggerate, but it was pretty close to 4 days. Which, if you know me, and people that do know me, I'm not much of a reader.
Yeah, yeah.
But what got me, Greg, was you came right out of the gate. There was no long drawn out. As a songwriter, a lot of times, I'll write. It takes me a while to get to really what I'm trying to get across. You and I told Jeannie this, and she agreed. You jumped right into a topic right from the get-go that blew my mind, had me in tears, because I had no idea those things had happened to you. Page by page, I had never, honestly, it's not because it's you. It, to me, didn't matter who the author was. It captivated me to a point to where I saw such an honest, transparent place that I needed to be. And so I tell so many people, Greg, I really do, especially our friends, get a copy of this book. It's very inexpensive, and it's a life changer. It's a lot, and it changed my life. It changed my perspective on how I try to live daily now. Even though your circumstance was so different than mine, it resonated so amazing.
Okay, talk to me about the word you used, transparency. What's that mean to you, and with what you're going to talk about tonight?
Well,
we won't get into that yet, but just that word and how the transparency. What's that mean to you?
Well, let me preempt it by saying this. Throughout most of the 90s, the decade of the 90s, I was honored. I was actually a part of the largest and fastest growing ministry in North America. And I played a vital role in that ministry. I was ordained in 96, had it all together. Yeah. Beautiful wife, had married the love of my life in 96. I always felt like I was, as a Christian man and an ordained minister, somebody who's involved in the ministry, I always felt like I was honest. But after reading your book and that word transparency, I realized there's a big difference between being honest and being transparent. And like I told you earlier, I started to bring it up a little bit, and I'll tell you now. I realized that I could be honest with my wife. Greg, I could be honest with you. But that doesn't mean I'm telling you everything. I could be keeping things from you.
Well, that's good.
It doesn't mean I'm lying to you, but in essence, I am, because I'm being honest about things, but there are things I'm not being honest about. That's where transparency comes in. And then one thing I learned in recovery, and I stress this to people I talk to now, big difference of being honest and being transparent. Being transparent is not just being able to tell the truth to somebody, but it's being open and a person and a vessel that there's nothing hidden anymore, and it's so freeing. Absolutely unbelievable. I never thought I would be where I'm at right now at age 52, sitting in my son's bedroom talking with you on this, Greg. And I want to thank you for that book and the courage to write that book.
Okay, so my honor. With that transparency, if you had to put a percentage of people that, let's just say, in the church world, that are really transparent? How many people in the percentage would you put that are in that goal, in that mold, or the majority people like me? All of my life up to 2 years ago, I kept that a secret in my closet. And I had that bondage and that baggage that I carried with me.
Well, in light of what I feel like I have defined as transparency, I would say maybe 20%, 15. I would go 15 probably, but just to be nice, I'll say maybe 20%, which, it's just a fact. It's hard to be transparent.
I tell you, here after this first commercial break, you're going to take down the veil.
Okay.
You probably have people that are listening that may not know the whole story. Now, Cartersville is a smaller town area that, it's not like Houston where we have millions of people here and I can get away with anything and nobody know about it. But Cartersville, they may know your story. But I kind of want to really grease this wheel and let that mask, I don't want to just look underneath it. I want you tonight to rip it off and become transparent, because I really believe the words that you just said to me about this, I want to see transform in you like you have been with me in the last few days that we've talked on the phone. But now I want you to do it to the world. And you're going to experience freedom that you have never experienced before. And I'm looking forward to that. And you may have already started, because I'm sure therapy, and we'll get into that deeper when we drill down later, has shown you how to become the real person.
Right.
Why do we play the games? Why do we put the mask on? Do you think it's easier?
It is. Coming from my point of view, being a musician, majority of my life, I've been on a stage where I've played in front of 10, 12,000 people, and I've played in front of 8 people.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. And I'm saying that because as a musician, a songwriter, singer, there's this, it's innate in all musicians and singers and songwriters to want to put on a show, to entertain and to be accepted. Nobody, no singer-songwriter ever says, I don't care if the crowd likes me or not. You want to be liked. You want to be accepted. And so you kind of create a facade, or at least I did, it became a lifestyle even after the music ended. And what took place after that, still that facade of who I became, it followed me up until just recently. So
you're basically saying we perform.
Yeah, it's a
because
performance.
We know if we're in the performance mode, we'll do what it takes to make people like us.
Oh yeah, and preachers, they're some of the world's worst. It is. It's a performance, and So.
Yeah, I'm guilty. Yeah, we're all guilty of that because it's easier to rely on that. But I have found out over the years, and you'll find out, and you probably already have, that when you finally say, hey, this is who I am, I hope you love me. If you don't, I can't help it. That's a problem that you have to have now. It's not mine, it's yours. The real and the freedom and the authenticity makes all the difference in the world. Mm-hmm. Now we're going to come back after this first commercial break, and I want people to start calling in and commenting on Facebook and iHeartRadio and all those other places that we're on tonight, 888-627-6008. On the other side of this, James, we're going to take you from that successfulness of what you had in the music ministry and in the bands and in the ordained part of your life, and then we're going to go behind the dark cloud and see what was going on and how that started. Okay, you ready for this? Okay,
I am.
Right after this first commercial break. Right now, as my son says, never say this anymore, but don't touch that dial. He keeps saying, Dad, they don't have dials anymore. But anyway, don't log off. Call your friends, let everybody know, hey, you want to watch this one tonight, because James is fixing to tell us a story that is going to change your life. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
This couldn't be coming at a better time. Have you ever felt like you were just trapped and couldn't find your way out of darkness? Have you ever felt like you were drowning and fighting to find your next breath? Well, coming in 2020 will be the second of a 3-part trilogy. My new book, Overcoming the Darkness, The Roadmap to Hope. This new book will provide you a step-by-step approach of how to reach that destination, that important destination called hope. Now, 2 additional resources are going to be made available when this book is released. One, the Map to Hope. It'll be a handy guide that you can carry around with you, put in your briefcase or put in your purse. And this guide is going to help you find your way when you're stuck in life looking and searching for hope. And then the other resource, the Overcoming the Darkness Companion Journal. I have always believed that journaling is the first step to finding real healing and hope in your life, and this journal will guide you down that path. I'm excited about these resources and this new book that's going to be released in 2020, the Summer of Hope. Now back to the next segment of Breaking the Silence with Dr. Gregory Williams right here on BBS Radio.
James, was that you on the bass in that music, on that commercial?
It was.
It was just what I thought. I thought I recalled.
See how transparent I'm being? How honest? Yeah, that was me. No,
that's great. Hey, is your lovely mom listening tonight?
She is.
Is Phyllis, I want to let you know, I love you dearly, and it is a joy to have you with us. And I love your kids and the impact that you made on my life. I just want to let you know, I appreciate every one of those pork chop dinners that you made for me. And
I tell her that all the time. A reminder, she's 88 years young.
88 years young. That's awesome. I can't wait to see y'all again live where I can hug your necks. Okay, James, my phone is going off the edge of the cliff with text.
Okay.
My emails are just going, you're touching people's hearts and you haven't even started in yet. We have 40 minutes.
Well, we're ahead.
And I got a feeling that we can go as long as we want, but let's just start digging. And Don will let me know later on, hey, just keep on going.
Okay.
If they're on the Facebook, we can stay live a little longer than what we can on the radio, and the radio will shut off because they have another program after ours. But tell me, you told us about the successes. You told us about the accolades and playing in front of thousands of people, and you've married this sweetheart of your lifelong dream. Family, what happened that started that little bit of snowball in your life that ended up becoming a huge barrier that almost took everything away?
It's not easy to pinpoint.
Right.
I hope you can hear me. I don't talk real loud.
Fine. Oh, you're doing great.
I mean, I could probably pick out several things that I feel like may have been kind of the beginning of it. I guess probably, and what most people who do know me dearly know, a lot of times I kept this very well hidden. And we all battle anxiety, we all battle depression, but my wife, she could witness to this very much so. I had a very, very horrible depression issue, and which led to anxiety and severe panic attacks. Just so that it caused me to have a really low view of myself. And I've never cried victim. I've always probably been that guy that overpromised and underproduced to a lot of people in my life. There were a lot of people that let me down as well.
Sure.
But to go back to where I probably realized that I was on a destructive path. And Greg, the thing about being an addict, and addicts can understand me. If there's addicts listening to me,
There are.
can understand this. When I was in high school, you know this, I was a huge Ozzy Osbourne fan. I hope I can say that
Sure, you can.
without permission from the, Prince of Darkness.
Oh, you're fine.
But he had a line in one of his songs, and I don't know why it always resonated to me, but it started out and it said, "Wine is fine, but whiskey's quicker. Suicide is slow with liquor."
Wow.
It was 5-6 years ago, maybe, and I could go back farther than that, but I'm going to go to this place. My brother Craig, who, you knew my brother Craig very well.
Yes.
We were extremely close, him and Matt and myself. It was my wife's birthday, and he stopped by here that morning and dropped off a card. We had hung out for a couple hours, had breakfast together, and I'd been drinking and popping pills, self-medicating for a long time prior to this. He left my house sometime before noon, and then several days passed by, and I didn't hear from him again. And I was on my way to church, believe it or not, and hungover. My mom called and said she hadn't talked to Craig and wanted to know if I would drive down. It was about 35 miles from where I live to his new home that he was living in, and just to see if he was there, because it was unlike him not to call at least my mom.
Right.
So I drove down there. I pulled in his driveway. Don't want to go real long with this, but his truck was in his carport, and I walked up to his door. The shades were all pulled. It was about 11:45 in the morning, 11:50. I beat on all of his doors, his windows, couldn't get a response. Called his cell phone, couldn't get him. Make a long story short, I finally was able to make my way through his kitchen door. And Greg, you'll understand what I'm about to say when I say this. The smell that hit me. You're very familiar with that smell, Greg.
Yeah.
And I looked down, and there was a cardboard box full of trash. And I just kind of had this hope, Lord God, let that be the trash I'm smelling. And his neighbor was with me. And I went in first through the kitchen. I'm right to go down this hallway to his bedroom, and his neighbor grabbed me by the shirt collar really hard, wheeled me around and pointed into his family room, and there was my brother. And he was laying on his couch, kind of halfway between his coffee table and his couch. And so I ran over and grabbed him, shook him, yelled his name, but I immediately knew his color, everything. I don't want to go into detail for the fact that my mom is watching.
Right.
And I remember the 2 hours I had to sit there while the law enforcement got there, the coroner had to get there, the whole process. And just staring at my brother and just everything just going through my mind, and thinking I was just in a dream, a nightmare. And I remember shortly after that, maybe a few days, dealing with it. We had to wait a while for the toxicology, the autopsy. Finally, when we got to lay him to rest, and a few days after that, I just the drinking got more, the pill popping got more. I was feeding myself on Vicodin, Klonopin, nicotine, and vodka. And it got to the point to where every day I was drunk, every day I was affected, every day I was stoned. It got to the point where I was no longer welcome to places. People began to pull away from me.
Really?
Even people at church. I would go to church, Greg. I would go to church after I would have to drink on the way to church, taking pills. And then it got to the point to where I pretty much I wanted to die. I just didn't want to live anymore. I felt like people had turned their back on me. I knew I was losing my wife. I had lost touch with my children. I was out of touch with reality. And I remember I went from being the life of the party to kind of barricading myself in my. I have a 2-car garage, and I divided it. Half of it I just turned into my man cave, which was that's when I knew, I probably should have knew that I was really suffering, had a problem, because I stopped going out, and I would go to the liquor store, and every night drink up to a fifth, sometimes more vodka, while I was taking Klonopin and Vicodin at the same time. And I would sit there just by myself in my garage.
You know,
And-
that's how Satan gets us.
Mhm.
If he can get you isolated, he's got you.
And I was isolated. And my wife will vouch for this. I'm not exaggerating. This is the transparency part. I was in denial. I was denying everything. And now looking back, especially when, you know, after I went through recovery, I was in such denial, but the nights that I would sit there and knowing, you know, I'm killing myself, but I didn't care, Greg. And at that point, I felt like I'm losing everything anyways. You know, lost some good jobs because I couldn't function without alcohol and pills. And you know, that's probably the darkest time of my life, was from the moment, you know, my brother passed up until the you know, that I decided to go into recovery.
Okay, now, unbelievable horrificness and trauma of seeing that, and our stories relate because I came upon the accident where my brother was ran over by a car,
Right.
and had to go into the emergency room and tell him to unplug the machine because he was dead, brain dead, and that changes your life. But let me drill a little bit in what you said. You said you were drinking before that,
Mhm.
pills before that.
Mhm.
What caused that? There was depression, there was trauma, there was anxiety before that event. I mean, that obviously had to take it from this level to this level
I did.
in a New York minute.
Mhm.
But what caused the early days? Was it just recreational use, or was you dealing with the beginning of depression before this event even happened, as horrific as it is?
I think it's a little bit of both, recreational and dealing. You know, of course, you know, playing in bands. After I left the kind of you could say the Christian industry, you know, I had joined up in a band, and you know, we were touring a lot and traveling all over the country, and it was kind of recreational for them. For me, it was a little bit more than recreational. I kind of went a little overboard most of the time with the heavy drinking. Where the pain medication and the Klonopin came in was I had injured my back, and I ended up having 3 back surgeries. And the last surgery I had was right about a 9-hour surgery. I was in the hospital 10 days, and I suffered from what's called a failed fusion syndrome. I had a level 3 spinal fusion that failed. I produced less than 1% bone growth. So I'm in chronic pain, and I'm constantly in chronic pain, horrible pain. And so that's where the Vicodin, the oxycodone, you know, the fentanyl, anything that would relieve the pain. But then it got to where, you know, it wasn't enough. I wanted more of that high, that euphoria that caused. And I got to the point where I couldn't go without it. I could not go one day without it. And so.
Well, was the times of being involved with the music industry and then that kind of stopping, did that take you to a place of darkness for you?
It did. Well, it did in some facets. You know, because the band I was in, you know, like I said, you know, we were gaining a lot of success, and it just abruptly ended. And you know, and it was on New Year's Day when it all came to a head and it ended. And I came back to Illinois, and you just kind of, you know, I just felt lost. I really didn't have anything anymore. I just didn't feel like I had really anything. You know, I didn't want to just settle down to a regular, you know, just normal 9-to-5 job. And I never want to be that normal person, you know?
Right.
And so where that part of music stopped, I started a new journey into, you know, the world of country music. Started writing songs, meeting, you know, a lot of people. I'm not going to drop names by no means. And going into that element, I found a home because, you know, with the at the time I had really long hair, and with the hair and the smoking, the drinking, it just all kind of it fit me perfect. And so I found me a place that I felt like allowed me to what I thought was being real and being who I really am, which was, again, I wasn't being transparent, and I was living a life for so long, and it just slowly escalated to the point where I couldn't get a hold on it. I couldn't stop.
Okay, so how we have a few minutes before our last break. How did things transpire that took you up to the point of where you said, wait, I have to get help. I have to go into recovery. What happened? That was it just the last straw? Did something else happen? Did just accumulation of everything? But how did it get to that point of now's the time I need help?
Okay. This is the hard part, because this is something that I've never shared with anybody. My wife may know. I know my kids are watching, my 9-year-old daughter and my 14-year-old son.
Okay.
It all came to a head this past June. I wasn't going to talk. I wasn't going to bring this up. I'm just going to throw this out there, and this could be for a later date to get more into detail.
Okay.
I had two, and I'm being completely honest and transparent. My hand got hot. 2 unsuccessful life attempts in June, and one of them was with I've got a pistol that my grandfather had given my dad that I ended up getting when my dad passed. I always kept it loaded, and I went in my bedroom, and my wife and we had been into it, and it was it. I was so stoned, Greg. I was so drunk. That was it, and I remember the gun wouldn't go, and I couldn't understand. I couldn't understand why the gun, and when I opened the chamber, it was completely unloaded. It's a 9-shot Sentinel. I always had 8 bullets in it, and I always kept one chamber empty just in case one of my kids got a hold of it, fired, it wouldn't go off. I couldn't for the life of me understand why it wasn't loaded. And then I remembered once I sobered up that the reason it was unloaded was because I had a friend of mine who I had him look at, because I had a little pin that had broken off in it, and he had unloaded it to look at it and had given it back to me. Thank God for that. And then the second attempt was actually, and this is hard because I know my mom's watching, and I know a lot of people. It was 1 week before I called recovery place, RecoverUs, and I was in my garage, and I was watching the final scene in the movie A Star Is Born with Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper, the belt hanging scene, and I attempted that in my garage. And the crazy thing is that being as broke as I am, cheap belt, the belt broke. The belt actually, literally, the metal piece where you slip, it broke off. And I remember hitting the floor of my garage and laying up against a mower I had just bought, riding mower, and my elbows were all skinned up, and I was laying there, and of course my neck was, had the red mark on it, and I was laid there, and then again I thought to myself, what am I doing? And you would think that would be enough for me to then immediately seek help, even to talk to my wife, but it didn't. I went several more days. Matter of fact, the next day I started all over again with the drinking, putting down the vodka and the pills, and self-medicating myself. And then, I don't know if you want to get into it now or when we come back, up to the point that when I decided the most important phone call I ever made in my entire life.
Okay, we're going to stop you right there, because first of all, I'm leaning in, and I want to look at you eyeball to eyeball. I love you.
I love you.
And I thank you for telling all of that tonight, and the impact that that's going to make on so many people, James, is life-changing. And I'm so glad the devil didn't win that one, that God took care of that belt and took care of that gun for you in advance, because he's got something so big for you now for the rest of your life that it's going to literally change your world. But I'll tell you what, that's powerful. On the other side of this last commercial break, we're going to get in now to that most important phone call that you've ever made. And then I really want to find out more about this program and the people you met there.
Yes.
And this was what you just talked about, was this past June, 2020.
Yes, just a few months ago.
Wow. If you want to get involved in this conversation, 888-627-6008. Curtis is going to hop in right after the recovery story at the latter part of the minutes and let us know if we have any comments on Facebook. But don't leave us now, because we have him laying on the garage floor next to his lawnmower when the belt broke. And now the life is going to change. Stay with us after this last break for another edition of Breaking the Silence. Be right back.
From HCI Publishing, that brought you the international bestsellers, A Child Called It, and the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, comes the latest book by Dr. Gregory Williams, Shattered by the Darkness. This book describes the horrific abuse that Dr. Williams suffered at the hands of his father for over 12 years, and the damaging effect of keeping everything silent about that abuse for 30 years. If you're looking for that book that you can't put down, then pick up a copy of Shattered by the Darkness by Dr. Gregory Williams at all Barnes & Noble stores, Amazon, and Books A Million. Now, back to Breaking the Silence with Dr. Gregory Williams.
Welcome back to Breaking the Silence, the last segment that we have going here. And I want to tell you what, we have just an awesome guest with us this evening, James Brown. And James has been sharing his heart and telling his story. And it has just been phenomenal. And everything's just going off the boards here on my phone and emails. And James, I want to get the story directly from you on now. It's a day or two after the attempts and that most important phone call. Tell me about that.
Well, actually, there was two phone calls. That following week, on my last attempt, we talked about, some days went by and my mom, God bless her, had called me and we were talking, and she simply just said this, Greg. She said, and you know how close my mom and I are.
Oh, yeah.
Extremely close. Matt and I, my mom, all of us, all of my brothers and my mom. She's the patriarch of our family. Hardest words I heard was, she said, James, and she was crying. And for me to look back and realize I was making my mom cry, she knew. And see, I thought I had the wool pulled over. I thought my mom doesn't know. She said, James, I'm going to tell you now before you say another word. She said, I'm done with you. I had prayed, and she began to cry, and her voice was breaking. And I could barely understand her. And she said, I'm done with you. I've turned you over to God, and I'm done. And that's how we hung the phone up. Broke my heart. And I knew, wow, I'm breaking the heart of a woman who I love so much, along with so many other people in my life. So about a week went by, and of course I continued to drink, continued to dope up and self-medicate. It was a Tuesday, I got addicted to the show House, Dr. House.
Yeah, yeah.
I could relate to that guy, even though I'm not a doctor, but he glamorized everything from that I felt like that I was. I get a TV station, A&I, and he's on every Tuesday for 8 hours straight, and I would binge watch him every Tuesday. And my kids would laugh and tell you, I would literally walk around the house with a cane and I would talk to my wife like she was number 13 on the show, and my kids like they were my staff, and I was Dr. House. It was just, and it was a Tuesday, and I made my run to the liquor store, came back home, sitting in my garage, drinking myself to a stupor, taking pills, and I went in my bedroom to lay down. And when I got in there, the last episode of House was on. So I was laying there and thinking I'm fooling my wife, my kids. They don't know how drunk I am, how pilled up I am. And this commercial came on. And I raised up, and here's this guy, kind of a macho, manly guy. His name is Seth. He's since become a dear, dear friend of mine. And it was a commercial for a place called RecoverUs. And it was in Carbondale, 6 miles from my home. I never knew it existed. And now I'm drunk and I'm pilled up and I'm watching this commercial. And for some reason, Greg, when the telephone number came across, I remembered it. And I got up, immediately walked back out of my garage, called the number. I remember it, called the number, not expecting anybody to answer because I figured they're closed. It's a Tuesday, it's past business hours, but I'll leave a message. So I hear this lady, beautiful voice, answer the telephone. And it was Kelly, who is the owner. And we talked for an hour. And I was drinking. I was still drinking vodka while I was on the phone with Recovery. I just shared with her, and she said, "Can you get in here?" She wanted me there immediately. A couple days had to go by, but my wife drove me over there to RecoverUs. That was on June 26th. I got there a little bit before 8 a.m. in June, and immediately was checked into the program. The whole staff was absolutely incredible. Just to tell you a little bit about the recovery process that I went through, because people need to know that this is out there. RecoverUs, it's all intravenous. They do IVs, and it's an IV there. And what they use is a drug called NAD. I'm gonna try to pronounce it. So if I mess this up, have a good laugh on me. But it's pronounced. It's like nisothiomenonide, adenine dinucleotide is what it stands for. I butchered it. But what that is, it's a coenzyme. Our body produces coenzyme, this coenzyme, NAD, and it'll store it. And the older we get, but what happens is when you drink as much as I was drinking and taking the drugs that I was taking, it depletes your body of that coenzyme. And so what this process does by going intravenously, and a good thing about it was not in-house. It was not an in-house rehab, because I didn't want that. I didn't want to be checked into a place where they were going to take my phone, exclude me from my family and friends for the first 15 days, where they were going to give me methadone and other oral pills to get me off the addiction, to get more addicted to other things to get off the addiction I was on.
Point.
This bypasses your digestive system, goes right into your blood. You have an immediate response to it. And so you sit 10, 12 hours a day with this pumping into you. And what it does, it completely regenerates your cellular and your neurological health. You have no DTs or withdrawals. That's what I was afraid of. I never had one withdrawal, never had DTs.
Wow.
And when I left that place in the middle of July, and I graduated my final day, to right now, I have not had not even a desire to drink. I mean, the temptation has been there. It will always be there. That's just part of my life now. It's one day at a time. But Kelly and Seth and Amy and Lenny, the whole staff over there, absolutely. I never felt like a criminal. I was never made to feel like I was a loser. I mean, here I was, Greg, when I checked in at 5'8", 5'8", I was almost 200 pounds.
Wow.
I was in liver failure. They did all my blood work. I was in liver fat. My enzymes were up. My platelets were low. I was bloated, swollen. I didn't even look like myself. I couldn't remember a day, and I don't mean to be graphic, that I didn't have diarrhea. When I came out of that place, now I'm down to about 165. My body has already began its total healing process, and I owe it to RecoverUs and to that staff there, and how I was treated and how I was loved and nurtured through RecoverUs in Carbondale, and it's just you know, and I'm not saying that other traditional methods wouldn't work for anybody else that can't get to a place like this, because it does, but you got to want it, Greg. And that's where I came to the point where I had to want it. I wasn't coerced. It wasn't court mandated, you know, and sitting over there gave me so much time to read and think. And I thought, how did I go from where I was to now having, you know, a couple of DUIs, which some people may not know that about me. They do now. A couple of DUIs on my record, being known pretty much as kind of the Otis of Carterville, the down drunk. I couldn't go anywhere without being drunk and being self-medicated on pills, to being now so clear-minded and so I've just never experienced what I'm feeling now, and it's by the grace of God.
I tell you, Kelly, Seth, Amy, RecoverUs, contact me. I want to give a whole show to you guys to find out more stories about the program, about this intravenous NAD, and actually, just tell about the stories and the trauma. And you have to have some wonderful. Contact me afterwards, because I know they're listening. And thank you for being used by God to take care of my friend. So, how many days clean, sober have you been since what day we at?
I wrote it down here on this piece of paper. The last time that I had the last time I drank, I have been completely sober now. It was the Saturday before the 26th, so it would have been the 24th of June. So if you count the days from June 24th until now, well, let's just say the 26th when I checked in, the 26th of June till now, you know, I don't know, maybe 60, 70 something days. I'm not sure. It's been incredible. And like I said, you know, they have, you know, I believe about 100% success rate with their patients. It's incredible.
That is unbelievable. We have Curtis on the line now. He's going to jump in because I think he has some comments or questions. Curtis, son, are you there? I want to make sure I can see him. Make sure you unmute. And Curtis, welcome, and good to see you. And you know James.
How we doing?
Hey,
James. James. I love you, brother. I knew this is going to be an awesome show. I was talking to you early in the week, and you knew how excited we were for this. Yeah. And this show has just boom. Everybody on Facebook loves you. You're getting so many comments of encouragement, and the story is just so powerful, James.
It's hard to cover the whole story in a short, you know, but I thank you guys for giving me this opportunity, and you know, so, and you can tell your audience this, that what Greg should have done was say, because I mean, I don't know many shows that one week they have James Brown on the show and the next week they're going to have Little Ricky. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, maybe I can get him to play the drums for your band. Maybe he'll play the drums for you.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. That'd be awesome.
And that's one thing I wanted to say before I jump into the question, is that you are that type of person that just, you bring joy to people. I'll never forget it when I was a kid. I mean, you know, knee-high to a grasshopper.
I know now you've grown up, look like you should be playing the next Superman. No, seriously.
Like that's just you, James. Like I said, I'll never forget as a kid, just when you were at the house, like you just brought joy. You made people laugh when you were around them. And I'm so happy to see that smile again, and you bringing joy to people. That's so awesome, James.
Thank you. That means the world to me, Curtis.
Oh, brother. But the first question that we have is, what kept you going? when you hit recovery, you hit those doors, what made you say, I'm going to do this? I'm going to keep going. What kept you going?
Like I said, and I'm not trying to sound, what's the right word I can use here? This is not a narcissistic self-help guru type of statement, but I mean this to any addict, anybody out there. You gotta want it. I had to want it more than not for my wife, not to save my marriage, not for my relationship with my kids, not for my good standing with the church, or I had to want it for myself. That's number one. Number two, it's the people you surround yourself around. And I was so blessed, so fortunate, and I cannot say enough about Kelly and Seth. Seth was my primary medical personnel that took care of me the most of the time I was there. The way they took care of me, and Lindy, the other nurse, and Amy, even the reception, to take care of me the way they did was, I'd never felt that before. And I had been coming off of hearing what people were, the negative things people were saying about me, how embarrassed I was to know that here I'm, 40 pounds overweight. I know that I'm the town drunk. I know that I can't show up to even a birthday party at my brother's house without being drunk and wasted, embarrassed myself. I can't tell you how many times I've fallen down my stairs in this house and embarrassed myself. To be where I'm at now, it's incredible, Curtis. So.
Amen, brother. So proud.
We have a couple more minutes. Anything else, Curtis, on that end before we?
Yeah, just one more, and this kind of probably ties in to that same question. But a lot of people that go to recovery do sadly fail out.
Right.
They go back to. But at what point during your process of recovery was like, hey, I've got this? Like, what was your turning point when you went in recovery? Like, what was that big point? It's like, hey, I've got to complete this now.
It was my first weekend. It was a Saturday night. I had went on that Monday. It was that first Saturday, and I got out of recovery. Like I said, they don't keep you there. They allow you to go home, which is awesome. It's different. And I went to a fireworks display. It was 4th of July with my wife and my 2 kids. And for the first time, I went to a social event with my family in over 10 years, and I was completely sober. And I liked it. I loved the way I felt. I loved the fact that I was coherent and I could enjoy my children and my wife. I even videoed it. I could enjoy the fireworks and the people around me. And it was at that moment where I said, I'm going to complete this. I'm going to do that. I'm going back, because you have to go back every day. And it seems like it takes forever. And I knew I had to get up early the next morning and go right back there and sit there for the, 10 hour, however long it takes for, it was hard. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. It's a hard process, like any recovery is. But that was the pivotal moment for me, was being able to enjoy myself for the first time sober. So
fantastic.
Awesome.
Well, I'll tell you, James, I can't say enough about how much I appreciate you sharing your story and your heart. I want to make sure we close down on the right side of this, because you said we can go long, but I want to make sure the people that are actually on the live portion of this, if Facebook, we'll keep going for a few more minutes. But is there anything that you would recommend, that if there's somebody listening tonight that has an issue, that hasn't been transparent, and we've all been there, done that. We all have skeletons in our closet. But if they haven't experienced what that transformation is, what would your words to be if you would say, hey, lean in, guys, lean in, folks. I want to tell you these words about what transparency's meant to you.
If I was to say anything to somebody who is maybe in the same situation I was in prior to recovery, I think that's what you're asking me.
Yes.
I would say, number one, first and foremost, I want you to realize, and when I say you, I'm talking to you, obviously, I'm talking to whoever may be listening, even if it's just one person. You are fearfully and wonderfully created.
Oh.
And you matter. It doesn't matter. You may be living alone in a trailer, isolated, feeling like you have nobody, but there is somebody, and God will provide a person. And I would say, if you truly want help and to get to overcome your addictions, to overcome, whether it's alcohol or pills or pornography, whatever your addiction is, find that they're out there. Find that person to call. Find that place to call. Obviously, Greg, you're available. Call Greg. Call me. Call and learn to talk and be open and transparent, like we've talked about. Because if I hadn't got to that place, like I said, my saving grace was a TV commercial. Laying in bed and a TV commercial pops up. God works in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
And my mind wasn't in a very good place at that night. I mean, I couldn't even remember how I got into my bedroom, much less memorize a number, but it stuck in my head and I called it. And that was for me. So I would tell anybody, number one, you got to want it. And most people do. They want to get better, Greg. Call that person or talk to that person, but realize that you are important and that you matter and that somebody out there does love you or will love you unconditionally. Find that.
That's great. I tell you what, I want to have you back on, and I want to have you back on with your wife sitting next to you, because there's another side to this story, James. And I know it would be so rude for me to say, hey, come on in and join in and be just hit her off guard. But I want you all to think about that and talk about that as a couple. The challenges, the trauma, the long nights, the arguing, the isolation. What's that feel like from her perspective of watching what was this become this? Mm-hmm. And then this started going off into a man cave in the garage. Yeah. And I want to find out how she's dealt with it, how she's coped with it, because I know there's spouses, friends that are listening that need that encouragement.
Well, Greg, I literally, the last 10 to 12 years, I lost the most important times in my children's life. I lost that. I lost so much time with my wife. I lost that. For lack of a better term, I put her and my children through living hell. They were living hell on earth, and it was and I own it. It was my fault, and I'm trying hard now to make that up, but it's going to take time. And I would love to have her sit with me, and I may not like what I hear, but it's all part of the growth process and being transparent.
Well, I tell you what, there's going to be a day, as sure as I'm sitting here, that we're going to be on the road together. We're going to be doing conferences together. She's going to be sitting next to you, and you're going to be on stage, and I'm going to say, okay, now, wives, you go with her. James, you stay here with the people that need this immediate help, and we're going to get down and dirty with them. And because there's people that's needing that kind of ministry and that kind of help and that assistance. And you're going to be a big thing to be able to change and be used by God in this country to be able to help change so many people's lives.
That would be a dream come true.
I have a feeling that's going to happen. And I watched Field of Dreams last night, and I cry when Kevin Costner sits there and goes, hey, Dad. And that catcher turns around. He said, you want to catch?
Yeah.
And then when they start throwing the ball back and forth, because I just cry like a baby at these movies, they show all the cars that are lined up waiting to get to a place of hope.
Amen,
and
Greg.
that is what you just brought to so many people tonight, hope.
That's a perfect analogy.
And the only way you can get to that hope, James, is doing what you said, the first step, admitting, I have a problem. Mm-hmm. Then you can get hope. As long as you keep covering it up, it can't come.
Yeah.
You keep denying it. Thanks, James. I love you so much.
Thank you, Greg, and I love you.
We're going to be doing some stuff together, and we're going to just, I can't wait to see the response when I get off the interview and start answering all these emails and texts. If people want to get in touch with you, and be careful, because this is going out worldwide, and they'll call you at 2:00 in the morning from Australia. So don't, if there's an email that people would want to contact you and just throw encouragement or say, hey, what was the name of that place? Or how did you handle this? What would the best way to be able to be in contact with you?
Well, of course, I am on Facebook. You put in, you're going to get a lot of James Browns.
I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm the one. You see my mug. The picture is my wife and I. It's James A. Brown or James Brown. I think it's James Brown. I don't mind to give my email address. It's if I can remember it because it's my new email address. But my email address is all lowercase letters. Bassman, Bassman. My wife's right here, and she's telling me what my email address is. 0268. It's Bassman 0268 @gmail.com.
Okay, 0268. I thought it was Bassman. I thought he was talking about fish when I typed it in. It's Bassman.
We spent a lot of time at the lake, Greg. We did.
Yeah, I know we did.
Bassman. Yeah, I played. But one before you go, I would say this.
Yeah.
Beautiful place there.
Oh, thank you. Come and stay with me anytime you want. I'm here.
Well, here's what I want you to do. I want you to get when I come and visit. You're gonna fly me down there. I want you to sit on that piano, and I'm gonna sit in that white chair with a cherry popsicle, and I'm gonna eat a dripping cherry popsicle in that white chair.
Okay, you can
in
do
my
it.
whitey tidies. So there's a picture for you.
That sounds like a deal. We can do that.
Yeah, and one thing though. If you notice, I don't know if you see this bracelet I'm wearing. A lot of people know what these are. It says "I am second."
Oh, yeah.
The day I graduated, you can see my twin brother Matt came to my graduation. He took this off his arm. He wore this forever, and he gave it to me. And the last thing I do want to say is that because at first when he gave it to me, I didn't know what. I just wasn't thinking that I'm second. That's kind of odd because if you put God first, and you know this, Greg, in all things, you put God first, and realize that. It's not about me. It's about Him. All things work together, to good to all those who love God and who are called according to His purpose. It's a promise. And so, yeah. But I want to give a shout out to my brother for giving. And I haven't taken it off since I graduated from recovery. And it's a reminder every day of sobriety and healing and peace. So thanks.
I Am Second is a great platform and a great book and a great program. If you want to get on the I Am Second site, because it's really, really good about putting God first and the stories of people that's gone through things like you. And thank you for sharing from your heart. Thank you for your friendship, and thank you for making an impact on my life. And I'm going to thank you now for the next 30 plus years that we're going to have in the future.
You got it.
And we're going to get.
I do have a book title for my book. I'll tell you about it when next time we talk.
Okay, we'll do.
On the phone call, I'll let you know.
You write it, and I will write the foreword to your book. I promise you.
I would be honored.
Okay.
I'd be honored if you just write it for me. I'm
having trouble with my own. What are you doing? But we're going to get a big RV and we're just going to travel the country. How about it?
Hey, you got it.
Okay.
I would love it.
Hey, thank you so much for sharing. I love you. And tell everybody down there in Carterville, I said howdy. And
I will, Greg.
Have a way to reconnect. And thanks for sharing your story.
Thank you, Greg, for having me. And like I said, I'm blown away. Thank you.
No, you've blown us away with that story. And I love to see how people, and when you're listening tonight, if you're listening as we close out, no matter what's happening in your life, no matter how bad you think it's getting in your life or it's gotten, get to the point where James was at, where he said, I need help, and reach out. Tonight is the time to reach out. Write us, email us, text us, call us. The whole world has my phone number. It's easy. Just call me and I'll be glad to talk to you as long as you need. But realize there's always hope. There's always hope.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, buddy, my friend.
Right.
I love you dearly. Next week, we're going to have little Ricky on the program, and I just want to encourage you. You won't want to miss this, because this is going to go hand in hand with James' story about being a musician, about being caught up in that kind of life, about the drugs and the alcohol and the pills and the partying that he did. As I read this book, unbelievable book. He's going to be here next week. As always, join us right here every week, every Sunday night live, and then you can catch the repeats of this immediately after this program on Facebook, but then it'll be on Apple and the iPhones and iHeartRadio and all these other sites around the world. Probably Tuesday afternoon, you'll be able to go around the podcast world in your car and say, hey, breaking the silence, and it comes right up. You'll be able to listen to it. Tell people to join in. We'd love to have your comments on the Facebook page. Let us know what you thought. Thank you, Curtis, for joining in and giving us a few questions. I love you, my friend, my son. And James, thank you for being who you are. And may God just take this and just take it to the next level. And thank you for sharing. I'm looking forward to seeing what the next next chapter of the book is going to be for you in your life.
Oh, I am too.
And your kid. When your kid stuck his head in the camera a while ago, it was like, oh man, what a beautiful child.
Well, thank you.
You're a blessing. I appreciate you, my friend. I love you.
Love you too.
Join us right here next week for another edition of Breaking the Silence, live from Houston, Texas, 8 p.m. every Sunday night, Central Time. Be right back next week for another edition. Thank you for joining us. Have an awesome, awesome week. God bless.
Thank you for listening to Breaking the Silence with Dr. Gregory Williams. To contact Dr. Williams, dial 832-396-6525 or email him at shatteredbythedarkness@gmail.com. And don't forget to join us each Sunday night at 8 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Pacific on BBS Radio Station 1 for the next episode of Breaking the Silence.